By now, you've probably seen what generative AI can do. It writes essays, answers questions, explains complex topics, and even helps solve problems in seconds. From the outside, it almost feels like you're interacting with something that truly understands what you're saying. But here's the important part. If you don't understand how it actually works, it's very easy to misunderstand what it is. And that misunderstanding can lead to over-trusting it or completely underestimating it. So let's break this down in the simplest way possible. No technical jargon, no complicated explanations, just the core idea that explains everything. Generative AI is a prediction machine. At its most basic level, generative AI is not a thinking system. It's a prediction system. It has been trained on massive amounts of data, books, websites, conversations, articles, and even code. By analyzing all of this, it learns patterns in how humans communicate. It learns how sentences are structured, how ideas are connected, and how language flows from one word to the next. So when you ask it a question, it doesn't pause and think like a human would. It doesn't reflect, reason, or form opinions in the way people do. Instead, it predicts what should come next in a sequence of words based on everything it has learned before. That's the core idea. Think of it like autocomplete, but much smarter. A simple way to understand this is to compare it to your phone's autocomplete feature. When you start typing a message, your phone suggests the next word based on what you've already written. Now imagine that system, but trained on billions of examples of human writing and conversation. Instead of suggesting just one or two words, it can generate entire sentences, paragraphs, and even full explanations. That's what generative AI is doing. It's predicting the next word, and then the next, and then the next, so quickly and accurately that it feels like a real conversation. And because those predictions are based on patterns learned from real human language, the output often sounds natural, clear, and convincing. It doesn't retrieve answers, it creates them. Here's where things get even more interesting. When you ask a traditional search engine a question, it retrieves information from existing sources. It shows you links, articles, or data that already exists somewhere online. Generative AI works differently. It doesn't go out and find an answer in real time. Instead, it generates a response from scratch based on patterns it has already learned. That means every answer you get is being created in that moment. It's not pulling a paragraph from a database, it's constructing a new one, word by word. This is why it can explain the same concept in multiple ways, adapt to your level of understanding, and even respond creatively. Why it feels so human? Because of how well it predicts language, generative AI can mimic human conversation extremely effectively. It can adjust tone, simplify explanations, or go into deep detail depending on what you ask. This creates the illusion that it understands meaning in the same way humans do. But that's not actually what's happening. It's not understanding in the human sense, it's recognizing patterns that look like understanding. And most of the time, that's enough to produce useful, accurate, and helpful responses. The strength behind the system. The reason generative AI feels so powerful is because language itself carries meaning, structure, and logic. By learning patterns in language at scale, the system can replicate many forms of reasoning, explanation, and creativity. This allows it to explain difficult topics in simple terms, write structured content, help with problem solving, assist with coding and technical tasks. All of this comes from one core ability, predicting what should come next in a meaningful way. Transition to the bigger insight. But once you understand that this is all based on prediction, something important becomes clear. If it's predicting what sounds right, does that mean it always knows what is right? That question leads us to the most important limitation of generative AI, and why understanding it matters more than ever. The most important limitation. Now that you understand how generative AI works, we need to talk about something critical. Its biggest strength is also its biggest weakness. Because if a system is designed to predict what sounds right, it can sometimes produce answers that sound convincing, but are actually wrong. Plausibility versus truth. Generative AI is optimized for plausibility, not truth. That means its goal is to produce responses that are coherent, natural, and contextually appropriate, not necessarily factually correct in every case. Most of the time, those two things overlap, but not always. And when they don't, the system doesn't know it's making a mistake. It simply continues generating what seems like the most likely next sequence of words. This is why you might occasionally see an answer that sounds confident, detailed, and well-structured, but turns out to be incorrect or incomplete. Why mistakes happen? These mistakes don't happen because the system is trying to mislead you. They happen because of how it works. It doesn't have real-time awareness. It doesn't verify facts as it generates them. And it doesn't understand truth in a human sense. Instead, it relies entirely on patterns learned during training. So if a pattern suggests that a certain type of answer fits your question, it will generate that answer even if the underlying information isn't perfect. You're not talking to a knowledge system. This leads to a very important realization. When you use generative AI, you're not interacting with a traditional knowledge system. You're interacting with a probability engine trained on human language. That distinction matters, because it changes how you should use it. Instead of assuming every answer is guaranteed to be correct, you start to see it as a tool that can guide, assist, and explain, but still requires human judgment. The right way to think about it. The most effective way to use generative AI is to treat it as a collaborator, not an authority. It can help you learn faster, explore ideas, and solve problems more efficiently, but it works best when combined with your own thinking, when you question its answers, when you verify important information, when you use it as a starting point, not the final word. That approach allows you to take advantage of its strengths while avoiding its limitations. Why this understanding changes everything. Once you truly understand how generative AI works, your entire perspective shifts. You stop seeing it as something mysterious or all-knowing, and you start seeing it for what it really is, a powerful system that generates language based on probability. That clarity makes you a better user, more aware, more critical, more effective. And in a world where AI is becoming more integrated into everyday life, that understanding becomes a major advantage. The bigger picture. Generative AI is still evolving. Its accuracy is improving. Its capabilities are expanding. Its role in society is growing. But the core principle remains the same. It predicts. And from that prediction, everything else emerges. Understanding that one idea helps you make sense of both its strengths and its limitations. The illusion of understanding. One of the most fascinating aspects of generative AI is how easily it creates the illusion of true understanding. When it explains a concept clearly, adapts to your tone, or answers follow-up questions naturally, it feels like there is real comprehension behind it. But in reality, what you are seeing is the result of highly advanced pattern recognition. The system has learned what good explanations look like, what logical reasoning sounds like, and how human conversations typically flow. That is why it can respond so convincingly, even though it does not actually know things in the way a human does. Why this matters more than ever. This distinction becomes increasingly important as more people rely on AI in their daily lives. Whether it is for studying, decision-making, or professional work, understanding that you are interacting with a probability-based system helps you stay aware and in control. It encourages you to think critically, to question outputs when necessary, and to use AI as a tool rather than a replacement for judgment. In a world where AI is becoming more integrated into everything we do, this awareness is not just useful, it is essential. Final thoughts. So when people ask how generative AI works, the answer doesn't need to be complicated. At its core, it's a system trained on massive amounts of human language, designed to predict what comes next in a way that feels natural and useful. That simple idea explains why it can do so much, and why it sometimes gets things wrong. If this explanation helped you better understand how generative AI actually works, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more clear, engaging breakdowns of complex topics. And now we want to hear from you. Do you think understanding how AI works changes how much you trust it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.